is NBC Palm Springs.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Gino Lamont.
And I'm Sarah Sanchez.
Topping our news this evening, 15 days after his death under the knee of police officer, George Floyd gets to his final resting place in his hometown of Houston, Texas. And on the day of his burial, the calls for police reform are growing louder. Some departments already taking action, including one here in the Valley. Meanwhile, the president is facing criticism for supporting a conspiracy theory about a protester who's still hospitalized in Buffalo. And there's an alarming amount of new coronavirus cases being reported nationwide. All that and more coming up.
Funeral services are held for George Floyd in Houston. He was then taken by a horse-drawn carriage to his final resting place next to his mother. During the service, Reverend Al Sharpton said George's family will miss him, but the nation will always remember his name. And preparations are underway for a local vigil being held for George Floyd and other victims of police brutality. It's set to take place in Indio at 6 tonight. Scheduled speakers include Indio Councilman Wayman Furman and Indio Police Department spokesman Ben Gitrin. And you might remember this vigil was scheduled for last Monday, June 1st, but that's the same day Riverside County enacted a countywide curfew, so the event was postponed. Tonight, with no curfew in place, people are gathering to honor the life of George Floyd as thousands of others do the same in Houston and, quite frankly, across the country. We'll bring you more from the vigil once it gets started, coming up at 6.
Riverside County Board of Supervisors proposes a review of the Sheriff Department procedures, including their use of force. But after hours of discussion involving Sheriff Chad Bianco, the motion is abruptly canceled. Our Olivia Sandusky joins us now with more on that meeting. Olivia, good evening.
Gino, it was a lengthy debate this morning and included questions of authority and legality, with the supervisors ultimately deciding that they'll have to do the right to propose this review, but they are leaving it in the hands of the sheriff.
A vote against this motion is a vote against accountability.
It casts an unfair, negative light on our sheriff department.
Opposing public comments flooded in as the Riverside County Board of Supervisors proposed reviewing sheriff policing and use of force.
This is about how we can come together and sit at the table and figure things out. And how can we make improvements?
But Sheriff Chad Bianco says all 354 pages of the department's procedures are available online and are reviewed regularly with the community.
Politics is killing our country, and this is an example. This overwhelmingly implies that we're doing something wrong and someone needs to fix it.
Supervisor Perez denied that claim and posed his own questions.
What's the listing of the individuals from the entire county of Riverside that actually engaged in that community discussion to put together those policies and procedures, or to have a discussion, an in-depth discussion as to what it means when we talk about use of force?
A statement from the Riverside Sheriff's Association says, "We do not believe that it is constructive to have a political body demand full-scale policy reviews when they do not have the legal authority to set or change any policy." And while the county's legal advisor said otherwise,
the Sheriff's Department and the conduct of employees of that department are a legitimate concern of the Board of Supervisors. So you do have the authority to bring forward the item that you have.
The supervisors decided to cancel the motion.
What I was elected for is to improve the community relationships with the Sheriff's Department and the people that we serve. Not yours, it's mine, and I want them to hold me accountable.
Now, at the end of that meeting, Sheriff Bianco did mention that he has not formed an advisory council of community members who could bring concerns to him about current policies. He did agree to report back to the board on July 7th with an update. Olivia Sandusky, NBC Palm Springs.
Yeah, and tonight the Desert Hot Springs Police Department is holding a forum of their own on policing in their community. That meeting also set for 6 o'clock tonight at the World of Life Fellowship Center. Police Chief Jim Henson will be hosting.
One of the topics on the agenda is police funding and reform. The DHS Police Department just recently outlawed carotid holds, a tactic similar to a chokehold that cuts off the flow of blood to someone's brain. Governor Newsom recently called for all California police to end its use. The forum also starts at 6, so we'll check back in later at the top of our 6 o'clock newscast.
Some state and federal leaders are taking the first step toward police reform, while the president promotes a conspiracy theory surrounding an elderly man in a video that sparked national outrage. Alice Barr has the latest on that.
With the echoes of nationwide protests for racial justice still reverberating, signs of action are emerging across the country. In New York, state lawmakers already approved legislation to ban chokeholds. Now they're working to open up records of police misconduct.
The current policing system doesn't work. And we're going to reinvent and reimagine policing for a new generation.
Arkansas now reviewing its police procedures for the first time in 45 years after the governor met with protest leaders.
I recognize that what they are asking for ought to be done.
On Capitol Hill, Democratic lawmakers are walking a tightrope. They're pushing a national police reform bill while distancing themselves from growing calls to reduce police department budgets and redirect the money to social services like mental health or education.
I do not agree with defunding the police, but what I absolutely agree with is that police officers shouldn't be subjected to deal with all of the problems in society.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell praising law enforcement today and offering a step toward common ground.
The memories of black Americans like George Floyd and Breonna Taylor can move us to continue combating residual racism.
President Trump still not addressing plans to combat systemic racism, while on Twitter today he's promoting an unfounded conspiracy theory that a 75-year-old protester pushed to the ground by Buffalo police could be part of a setup. Buffalo's mayor responding his city is laser focused on healing and taking action against racial injustice. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Meanwhile, cities around the country are asking if it's time to defund police or reimagine public safety. One model some cities are considering is called CAHOOTS, which stands for Crisis Assistance Helping Out on the Streets. Our Daytona Everett explains why the program is garnering national attention. Daytona.
Gino, CAHOOTS started in Eugene, Oregon more than 30 years ago. They get 2% of the police budget, but that 2% they handle 17% of public safety calls, and now other states are looking at adopting the same model.
CAHOOTS, which is a part of the nonprofit Whitebird, provides mental health services on the road, and it's been continuously growing since it first began in 1989.
Just a couple of weeks ago, we added 5 more service hours to our Eugene programming. That's allowed us to go from 7 hours of overlapping coverage to a full 12-hour period where we have 2 vans responding simultaneously to requests for service in Eugene.
That was CAHOOTS operations coordinator Tim Black back in January. Now the program is getting even larger, with other cities considering the same model, including Minneapolis, where George Floyd died after a police officer kneeled against his neck for nearly 9 minutes last month. Right now, there's a nationwide movement to scale back the responsibilities of the police. Many social welfare tasks currently fall under the duties of armed police officers, like drug overdoses and working with people who have a mental illness or are homeless. That's where CAHOOTS comes in.
Like if you're, thinking about the last thing, or you're stuck in the previous call, then you're not present for that next human that needs your help, and they can feel that.
In 2018, Black said CAHOOTS had almost 24,000 responses, about 20% of the area's 911 calls. That's in Eugene and Springfield. All of that only with a $2 million budget.
Anybody can have a crisis, and CAHOOTS is available for all of our community members. We don't have any criteria about socioeconomic class.
A new way to protect and serve, and maybe save a life.
Some California counties are also considering adopting the program. As of right now, the Coachella Valley has not partnered with the nonprofit, but does have other types of task forces here as well. For NBC Palm Springs, I'm Daytona Everett.
Taking a live look now from our Agua Caliente casino cam in Rancho Mirage. Beautiful blue sky out there. NBC Palm Springs Chief Meteorologist Mike Everett has a look at the forecast. Mike, it was such a gorgeous day. Did you enjoy it?
Absolutely, I did. You know what I did? I was wishing that this was just the day that we could experience for the next 3 months. Could you imagine if we were warm without being excessively hot? That's exactly what we did today. Temperatures got up to 99 degrees. That was 1 degree shy of our average for this time of year, and certainly nothing like that heat that we saw across the region last week. More heat is moving in, and all of that has to do with some high pressure that's well off towards our north right now in a place called the Great Basin. What that's doing is bringing the flow in from a very different direction. Remember, over the weekend. We had those gusty winds coming in from the north and northwest. Now they've switched around. When they start to push in from the east like that, even a little bit of a southeasterly flow right now in Palm Springs and Palm Desert, you get very dry, you get very warm. In fact, along the coast today, they experienced that. We still have the heat advisory in place along the coast because whenever you get that offshore flow, we were talking about this yesterday, when the air goes across the mountains, it starts to expand. Let's see if we can get that to come back. It starts to expand. So what that does is it heats up along the coast. Many communities today were warmer than we were. Case in point, Anaheim shattered their daily record today, 101 degrees. That was 2 degrees warmer than we were, and we're in a desert. They're on the coast. Take a look outside right now. Again, warm without being hot. Currently 98 at Palm Springs International. That light breeze from the southeast and very dry, 5% humidity. Here comes the heat, though. The next 3 days are brought to you by Comfort Air. 108 on Wednesday, 110 on Thursday. But timing is everything. We're tracking another low moving in this weekend. It's going to mellow us out once again. Details in your full forecast minutes away.
All right, thank you, Mike. Yeah, we do have some sad news to tell you about just into our newsroom. A few moments ago, Dr. Frank Erkely, the director of Desert Regional's Trauma Center, has died at the age of 67. Dr. Erkely was well known and beloved and a respected member of the Coachella Valley community. He was even the surgeon to treat officers Gil Vega and Leslie Serebny after the pair was shot back in 2016. He was also on the scene of the tragic school bus crash on Tramway Road. The flag will be flown at half-staff, and the tower at Desert Regional Medical Center will be lit up blue tonight in honor of Dr. Erkely. Dr. Frank Erkely, one of the Great Valley residents, dead today at the age of 67.
Turning now to coronavirus confusion, the World Health Organization says the risk of getting COVID-19 from asymptomatic people is actually very low. That contradicts what we've heard for months. But asymptomatic might not mean what we originally thought. Some people who think they have no symptoms actually still have mild or unusual symptoms and can pass on the virus. The WHO clarified late today there's still much we don't know about the virus, they say.
All right, taking a look at today's numbers, a stunning 384 new cases were reported county-wide, 183 of those in the Coachella Valley, bringing our local total to more than 2,300. 9 new deaths in the county, but none here in the Coachella Valley. More than 5,400 people, though, have officially recovered county-wide. City by city, Indio has 611, but Palm Desert continues to have the most deaths with 26 people.
Weddings in recent months have looked very different because of COVID-19. One Coachella Valley couple had their ceremony at a local movie theater. They said, although they do love the theater, it wasn't what they originally had in mind.
It was kind of interesting. It's not my first thought of, but at least I can always say throughout the legacy, we got married at the theater. Everyone that loves each other needs to take this chance, you know, even with the epidemic and everything going on. You know, if you have love for each other, where there's a will, there's a way.
Jeremy says the County of Riverside booked the movie theater and provided the officiant for them.
All right, coming up after the break, video of this gas station altercation in Arizona has gone viral. And when we come back, we'll tell you the story behind the slap.
Plus, a shocking number of people are admitting to misusing bleach to fight coronavirus. The CDC's warning tonight about how Americans are using it in dangerous ways. Plus, we'll head back to Houston for a closer look at George Floyd's funeral. Family and friends saying goodbye to him one last time.
The hearse carrying the body of George Floyd to his final resting place. We'll take you inside the church for the rousing moments from today's funeral, also the pointed calls for action, and show you more of the remarkable scene on the outside that greeted his procession when we see you from Houston on NBC Nightly News.
A gas station altercation goes viral after a woman slaps another woman over her racist comments. Greg Kahn shot the video in Phoenix and posted it online. Now, the woman in the striped dress got into an argument with another woman seen in a pink top, telling her to, quote, go back to Mexico. The woman in the dress grabs the other woman, who then turns and slaps her. Tonight at 6, we're going to hear from the man who recorded the video and from the husband of the woman who was slapped. That and more coming up tonight at 6.
15 days after his death, George Floyd is being laid to rest in Houston. Jay Gray has more from the private service.
Tonight, George Floyd is finally home.
It's time for us to celebrate his life. We may weep, we may mourn, we'll be comforted, and we will find hope.
Hope shared by a nation. Images of tens of thousands marching across the country and around the world. Evidence of his impact and legacy.
We honor him today because when he took his last breath, the rest of us will now be able to breathe.
God is with us.
But for Floyd's family, breaths are difficult to gather right now.
All I think about is when he was yelling for mama.
Their hearts are heavy. Their loss overwhelming.
I just want to say to him, I love you, and I thank God for giving me my own personal Superman.
A superhero to so many here, whose message and mission doesn't end with his passing.
Out of his death has come a movement, a worldwide movement.
But on this day, the movement pauses, if only for a few hours, to honor his memory. Jay Gray, NBC News, Houston.
When we come back, Mike has a look at the forecast. Mike.
Sarah, today was kind of a weird day. As I was mentioning earlier, it was hotter on the coast than it was here in the desert. Go figure. We are tracking a reversal of that, though. We're about to warm up for a couple of days, but as I mentioned, the weekend is looking good. We'll track it when we come back. Welcome back. Well, all told, not a bad Tuesday in early June. Skies perfectly blue out there. Not seeing any of that coastal cloud cover that was around over the weekend. Not seeing any of those gusty winds around over the weekend as well. We saw that flow coming in not only from the east, but the southeast. It's going to change things up a little bit. So 1 degree below average today. 99 is where we got to. 100 is the norm. Not bad. 117 is the record. That seems similar to last week. Remember, we hit a 115 last Wednesday, so anything is possible this time of year. 66 in the overnights. 4 glorious degrees below average, and those early mornings and late nights have just been spectacular. We'll see how much longer we can hang on to that. Here's what's happening across the region right now. Look at that. 90s along the coast, the classic hallmark of offshore flow. And today, Anaheim, 103 degrees. They didn't just break their daily record, they shattered it by about a good 5 or 6 degrees. Newport broke their old record, hitting 84 today versus the 82 that was normally their record for this date. 95 currently in Havasu, 97 in Yuma, 94 in Phoenix. Again, Phoenix and LA are 4 degrees apart right now. That's a little bit weird and a little bit uncomfortable. Take a look at the big picture here. Not a lot to see, but see that line of cloud cover right there and that low that's spinning off of the coast just parallel with British Columbia. That is going to be our savior this weekend. Short story long, high pressure builds across the region. We're going to warm up for the next couple days. Wednesday and Thursday, we get back up into the 107, 110 range. And then as soon as that little wisp of cloud cover moves over top of us this weekend, we'll cool things down a little bit. Taking a look at Cristobal, or what's left of it, now a remnant low just hammering the Great Lakes region. And we were talking about this yesterday. Normally what these systems do when they come in off the Gulf like that is they'll hook a hard right and head over top of the eastern seaboard there and deliver all the rain up in that neck of the woods. To have tropical rain make its way up into places like Wisconsin, Michigan, and the Great Lakes region is extremely rare, and they're getting a lot of rain right now. The good news is that system will move off fairly quickly and we'll be out in the Atlantic in about another 48 to 72 hours. Across the west, not a whole lot happening. Red flag warnings down towards New Mexico, parts of Colorado, and then off into Texas as well. Severe thunderstorm warnings in parts of Colorado today, and then lots and lots of flood warnings associated with Cristobal, literally from Texas all the way up to the Great Lakes there. We'll keep an eye on that and have some updates for you tonight at 11. Here's what we're expecting on Wednesday. High pressure keeping the West Coast warm. 73 in Seattle. Good Lord. 69 in Minneapolis with all that rain. 85 in New York and 89 and muggy tomorrow in Miami. Heat advisory along the coast. Well, yeah, when it gets into the 90s and 100s, that's what happens. We'll see that expire tonight at 7 o'clock, and then a little coastal eddy will build in for the next couple days, and we'll reverse course. They'll be cool. We'll get warmer. 93 currently in Desert Hot Springs, 82 in the Yucca Valley, 99 in Coachella, 88 and 29 Palms, 66 in Big Bear, and 89 in Cabazon. Quick cooling tonight's going to be a very pleasant night and a very nice start to your day on Wednesday, but then here comes, it gets warm. If you're looking for something to do tonight, there's still a beautiful moon and some great stars out. 108 tomorrow in Indio, 110 waiting for you on Thursday, but then timing's everything. Look at what happens on Saturday. Low pressure moves in, knocks us back below average before we warm up again next week.
Researchers studying the drying time of respiratory droplets from COVID-19 patients. They found higher temperatures help dry out the droplets faster, which will reduce the chance of the virus surviving. Droplets live on surfaces longer in places with greater humidity.
The CDC says Americans are misusing bleach to fight coronavirus. 39% of surveyed people admit to incorrectly using it. 19% of them say they wash their food with it. 18% say they use it on their skin. And then there are the 4% of people who admit to drinking or gargling bleach. Of course, you're never supposed to do any of that. We'll be right back after this. Thank you for joining us here at 5. We'll be back at 6 after NBC Nightly News.